Hey everybody, it's Rob here with my co-host Cameron Davis, good friend, and we have a special guest with us today, Josh Wymore. Josh is a local from Fort Wayne. He is the principal consultant of Wymore Consulting, where they help companies grow by investing in their leaders. Josh, how are you doing today?
Awesome. Couldn't be better, Rob. How are you?
Doing great. Did you see the snow?
I did. Tell you what, I could be better if it would be 70 degrees outside. Other than that, I'm great.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing to me because our last meeting, it's snowing. It's just coming down. And I look out now and it's all gone. I mean, it's grass again. It's green grass again.
Yeah.
Now, Cam, you're up in Michigan. What was the snow doing up there?
Well, during the meeting I was in with you, it was just snowing and snowing. I was like, God, this gives me more confirmation that I don't need to go outside right now.
You needed a sign, right?
I did. I said, God, give me a sign. He said, oh, there it is.
Well, Josh, thanks so much for joining us. Snow or not, we're glad that you're here. And we're just going to go ahead and have Cam start off with our 5 questions for you.
Yes. Josh, thanks again for being a part with us. So my first question I have for you is, how are you able to stimulate creative energy during this time that we're in right now?
Yeah, good question. I think 2 things. One is thinking about the things that I'm putting into my mind. And so, making sure that I'm feeding good information in there, reading interesting books. I just started reading Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, a book on negotiation. It was not something that was, something I think about very much, but it's given me a lot to think about in my marriage, my business, of course, lots of other areas. So yeah, reading interesting things I think has been really helpful. And then the second thing is probably making space for like mental downtime, like working with your hands.
Yeah.
Just taking naps, taking walks, like that kind of stuff. I find a lot of my best ideas just, emerge when I'm not focusing on problems, even, solutions to things that I was thinking about earlier and couldn't figure out, those answers bubble up whenever you have time. So I'd love to start taking like hour-long showers every day because all my best ideas come out there.
You need to get yourself a grease board in the shower so you can just kind of write it on there. Do you remember the old grease boards before marker boards?
No, I'm not nearly as old as you are, Rob. I'm sorry to say.
Oh, wow.
This is one of those stimulating ideas. I never would have thought of that, but the intergenerational conversation we're having today is just sparking me.
Yeah, well, just consider yourself learned. You learned something new, buddy.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, you're welcome. Okay, next question. What do you believe, Josh, working with organizations, working in leadership, is one of the most important core values that an organization should have?
Yeah. Man, I would say, a core value of humility, I think, is the most essential thing. And I don't think we understand humility well. I think when we think about that, it means we think lowly of ourselves. We never talk about ourselves. We don't think we can do anything.
Yeah.
Self-deprecation is not humility. Humility is being able to focus on others because we're not self-absorbed. It's being able to be wrong because we know we don't have all the answers and we're not, our self-worth isn't found in looking like we have it all together.
Right.
The ability to be about something bigger than ourselves, all of that for me comes out of humility. This won't be ready for a long time, but I'm working on a book right now on this topic of just how humility and humble leadership is the deal breaker. Every other virtue of leadership and organizational health, I think, builds off that virtue of humility. So
I would absolutely agree. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, this next question stems off your last response. So you talked about books and, there's a plethora behind you. So my next question I have for you is, what would you say has been the most gifted book that you have either received or what has been the most gifted book that you have gifted upon to someone else?
The book I've probably given away the most is Sacred Marriage by Gary Thomas. So usually because when people are getting engaged, it's the time to give gifts anyway, so it's natural. But one of the reasons we give that book away in particular is the central thesis of that book was transformational for me when I read it back before actually my wife and I were engaged. And the idea is that marriage exists to make you holy rather than to make you happy. And, for me, someone who grew up for whatever reason watching lots of, chick flicks or romantic movies or whatever, I had a very, I would say, unhealthy view of what marriage was. It's about, bringing me joy and me happiness. And if I'm already happy as a single person, why would I, go get married and have a chance to ruin that? Being married could totally wreck your happiness.
Right.
But reading this book and thinking, okay, maybe God has bigger plans for me, and his holiness and my perfection, making me look more like Christ through marriage. Maybe that's his primary goal. And ironically, when that happens, happiness follows as well. And so, because of the power of that, and because, it's a time to give books away, Sacred Marriage would probably be the book I've given away the most.
Okay.
Awesome. Very cool. Thank you. What would you say that the single greatest thing is that a leader can do to add value to their people?
Yeah, I think it's so simple that it's almost not worth mentioning, but it's worth mentioning because we don't do it. And I think it's ask really good questions and then listen to what people have to say.
Oh, awesome. Very great.
One of the statements that one of the companies I work with, they say, an insight is not an insight until it occurs in the mind of the other person. And I think when you're a leader, oftentimes you attain a position of authority because you're really bright. You've got a lot of great ideas, and the tendency is to want to pour those ideas into other people and, share your knowledge with them. But if it's a one-way street and they're not thinking, they're not pausing to reflect, and they're not feeling that cognitive dissonance of realizing, there's an important question I don't have an answer to here.
Yeah.
If they don't get to that spot, they're not hungry for what you have to say. And so it just kind of is in one ear and out the other. And so asking questions rather than making lots of statements opens that door. And then, secondly, listening really well, making people feel heard, one of the most valuable things you can do. And if you're a leader, that's a sign of humility too, that I have something to learn from you.
Yeah.
Not just listening for what you have to say so I can make my next statement, but I really want to understand you, and I'm going to grow from that interaction. So
Perfect.
Listening.
Love it. Perfect. Thank you, Josh.
All right. Well, this is the last question that we have, and I'm really just enjoying the questions that have been asked about you as a leader. So now we're going to get to the nitty-gritty about who Josh is himself.
All right.
So, Josh, if you could invite anyone to break bread with you, who would you choose?
This is kind of a random one, but I would say Mac Brown, the head football coach of the UNC Tar Heels. And
okay.
I say that not because I'm a Tar Heels fan. I'm actually a big Texas Longhorns fan as a native Texan. But one of the things I learned from watching Mac, 10 years ago when he was at the University of Texas is in press conferences, it was impossible to get him to say anything negative about anyone else. He'd get on and he'd say, Coach, what do you think about, Baker Mayfield, the other quarterback at the University of Oklahoma? And he'd say, oh man, Baker, he's an incredible passer. He's just got heart, and he's going to be really tough to beat. And always so complimentary. And I love just how gracious he was with his team. He never threw people under the bus. I think his positivity and just love for people. I don't know if he's a Christian or not, but I've learned a lot from him, watching him at a distance as a leader, and would love to have lunch with him and have him tell me about the 2005 national championship that Texas won. So.
Okay. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Well, unfortunately, it is our time. I've really enjoyed that, and I really enjoyed.
Thank you, Josh.
You selected. I mean, it's so hard nowadays just to be able to give someone compliments, especially on the opposing team or someone who's doing the exact same thing as you, just to be humble. So I really appreciate that. Yeah, definitely. So, Josh, this would not be a high five if we actually didn't do a high five. So, guys, I'll count us down. So, in 3, 2, 1. High five.
High five.